fetal heartbeat bill. Not a perfect bill. Certainly much better than what we have now, which is 20 weeks. Certainly will probably save half of the 1,000 or more unborn babies that are being aborted, whether through chemical abortions by pills or sucked out of their mother's womb by a vacuum cleaner. We'll save half those babies. It's a start. It is a step in the right direction.
Senator.
Mr. President, I'm not going to take questions.
Okay, refuses to yield. Senator Matters.
So that's it. I'm not going to be long. I urge this amendment be tabled and all subsequent amendments.
Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President. Mr. President.
Senator Darlington on purpose. Senator from Anderson made a motion to table. That's a non-debatable. Senator from Darlington.
I think the senator from Anderson will withhold his motion to table for those that wanted to speak on it or have a question he wants to answer.
I will withhold the motion for those who wish to speak on the amendment.
Senator withholds the motion. Senator from Charleston. Senator Sin on purpose.
We heard on the amendment.
Because you cannot withhold another senator who desires to speak or to ask a question. This is the second. You cannot take a question.
Senator Charleston.
I'm seeing a pattern here, and the pattern seems to be that if you don't want to answer my questions, you just, for whatever reason, you don't want to answer my questions. All it does is make me have to come up here, and then I kind of have the floor. I can say what I want, okay? So here's what I'm going to say about this amendment. Not only is it entirely reasonable, it gives women 12 weeks, it is what can be passed. Women will have had 2 kidneys periods. They should be feeling changes, and they should. I think we all can agree that they should be on notice at that point that they're pregnant, and they need to make decisions sooner rather than later. But here's what I just heard from the senator from Anderson. He says this new bill, that all the 14 pages that the House added, is faulty. Now I wanted to ask him how it was faulty. I can't jump into his mind on that, but I bet you he thinks it needs to be a little bit tougher. Bet you he thinks we ought to take it back to total abortion. Although I have no idea of that, but I can say this. Most of the people, a lot of people in here voted for the version that we passed. They voted for it, including the senator from Anderson. And yet, the senator from Anderson didn't stay up here long enough for me to ask him whether or what both he and Representative McCravey and the majority leader and Speaker of the House were talking about over there whenever this new version came out, the new bill, the new strike and insert. I wasn't able to ask that, but I can tell you this. What we passed may not have been perfect either, but what we passed. And now what they've done is make significant changes. He would like to see even more made, but he's not going to do it out of fear that he's going to mess up a bill that he has already held. He already knew about all this strike and insert way before we did. It was like a deal, some kind of deal, a deal that the rest of us in the Senate didn't get to know about. And it's something that we as senators should not tolerate. We should not tolerate backroom deals being made with the House when they don't know how we feel about it. We should not tolerate having a surprise on us like that. And that's exactly what happened. The people over in the House had to work 40 hours, I think it was, all because of this amendment that was told was going to pass. And I do hope that you read it closely. I've outlined some significant changes. There are significant changes. And to the extent you stood with us on the total abortion ban, know this. The bill is going to lead back to personhood because it changes everything. It changes the definitions. Even with respect to the 6-week bill, it takes it back to 4 weeks. This is important. This is not something that we all voted for. So if you stood with us the first time, I'm going to ask that you stand with us again because these are significant changes and it's something that I don't think will pass constitutional muster, but it is going to take us directly into personhood, because it is life begins at its conception, and then the legislative finding says the state has an interest in that egg, that fertilized egg. Thank you.
Mr. President, thank you.
Yes, yes, sir.
Relinquishes the floor. Senator Donald Alcott.
President.
Senator from North, what purpose do you
I'd
ask?
like to hear.
Recognize. Please recognize the Alcott. Senator. Senator, what purpose do you ask? Recognize. Senator from Kershaw.
I don't know if I can be as eloquent as a senator from Lexington or as pointedly direct as a senator from Charleston or as passionate as the senator from Colleton or as calm as a senator from Richland. She's always very calm. I voted for S1. We passed it. It went to the governor. Did not hold up to constitutional muster. And we had 474. And I voted for that too. I voted for our version of S474. And it was very clear that at least the women, I don't know about everybody individually, I'll just speak for myself and put it that way. I was not going to be satisfied if the bill were changed. It's not the same bill. It's not 474. It's just something different. I came to the South Carolina House last week. I sat on the floor as they were debating their billion amendments, and I listened. And I also talked with a number of House members who are both Democratic and Republican. And I will tell you, they were as shocked as I was to learn that this was not a slam dunk, that one amendment. One of the Republican House members told me, with the jaw drop, well, we thought that, just this amendment is okay, this is all right. And then, and that's it, just that one amendment. And I said to this person, but it's not one item, it's many, many, many items. I thought I would get a different response to talk to a Democrat in the House, and they had the exact same response, which made me really wonder about things that have been suggested here, and we know that happens. You can call them whatever you want to, backdoor deals, private discussions. This happens everywhere, in every organization, pretty much. I kind of expected it here. Except for I really felt like we got slammed by the South Carolina House. I also attended the House Judiciary meeting to see for myself, because I just like to see things eye to eye for myself. And I went up to Senator McCravy and I shook his hand before it started. Excuse me. Representative McCravy. I shook his hand and I just simply said, please pass the bill. That's all I said. And I sat down. He smirked back. Nobody in the South Carolina House ever came to me personally to ask my opinion about anything. Ever. All the conversations were among the leadership, which is fine, but you would think at some point, because it's about women's health and women's bodies and babies, you would think at some point we would be asked. Perhaps a senator from Lexington was approached. I was not. It didn't have to be contentious. This really didn't have to be that contentious. But I will tell you, I took offense when certain senators
understood it as well last fall and told me I was basically, he said basically if you didn't support a total abortion ban, you're going to hell. What do you do with that? The suggestions that we are not Christian women, that we are rhino baby killers, is insulting. And believe me, we're in this as much as y'all are. This is not an easy topic for anyone. I've been surprised by certain people I know in my circles. I have many friends and constituents who do not want any abortions. And with many of them, I'm able to talk with them, speak with them, and we discussed it. But some of them are no longer my friends. Of course, they never were they? The changes that South Carolina House made, so many of them were unnecessary. It was just extra stuff. If anything, we need to be reducing our bills and not making them quite as detailed and long. We need to definitely not make unnecessary restrictions. I voted for the 6-week bill, and like the senator from Lexington, I don't think it's long enough to make an informed decision. And what bothers me most about that is there is an assumption. I hope everybody's hearing me. There is an assumption that women are going to choose an abortion. That is the assumption. It's the go-to. That's not right. The child support from conception on, y'all, it's just cuckoo. That cannot be enforced. It cannot be implemented as it was described before. I think I mentioned this a couple months ago. My son is 25 years old. Guess what? I started getting child support from my ex-husband last year. 25. Because he decided to stop paying it.
What's she doing? 725.
It matters what's in the bill. I've been told it doesn't matter the changes because it's an abortion bill. It matters. The language matters. It matters that definitions were completely changed or eliminated. It matters. It matters that we have extra fact findings. Now, I would like to mention that the senator from Edgefield and I we did have some conversations, and we discussed 4 fact findings, and I told him from the very beginning, I said, well, that 4th one is, no, I'm not going to agree with that. That's got to go. And it did go. That was gone. I think that was not only really input with the conversation with the bill, but he listened and he probably talked to some other people who felt the same way. Adding the fact findings, the whereas clauses, that's problematic for our South Carolina Supreme Court. They warned us about this. And speaking about our South Carolina Supreme Court, I don't know if any of y'all caught the interview with Justice Kay Hearn on ETV, May 19th, that's Friday. Anybody catch that? She talked about all kinds of things. She talked about her career. She talked about women in general. She said women are close to being about 40% of the bar now. I think that's pretty good. Getting better. She said that Judge Gary Hill is excellent judge. And she also said the other 2 women were also equally deserving, perhaps more so because they had been on the bench longer. She did offer the lead opinion, and 2 of those male justices agreed with her. And she also said, so you know, and I'm almost quoting her, I wrote down word for word as much as I could. She regretted if her opinion had any impact on the judge election that we just got through. And she stands by her opinion. I'll end with this. And it's her quote. This is a quote. This is from retired Justice Kay Hearn of South Carolina Supreme Court. If you're going to pass a law, a statute dealing with abortion, you need to give women enough time to know they are pregnant. And 6 weeks is a joke. If you're going to pass a law, a statute dealing with abortion, you need to give women enough time to know they're pregnant. And 6 weeks is a joke.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Senator from Anderson, Senator Cash, what purpose do you have?
See if the senator would yield for a question.
Senator yields for a question.
Did Justice Hearn tell you what she thought was the appropriate time?
I did not interview her.
I'm sorry, did you say you were speaking with her?
No, she
I
said
was
she saw.
calling an interview she had with on ETV last Friday. I watched the interview and I wrote down her answers and listened to it pretty carefully.
Do you think the Supreme Court justices are the ones who are in a position to decide legislatively what the abortion laws or regulations should be, including how much time someone should be allowed to have an abortion?
I don't want judges legislating from the bench.
Thank you.
We make that decision. We've got to come to a decision. Please consider this, Sean. Just consider it. And it's not too late to change your mind. It wasn't too late for the House to change their mind on half the bill that they struck. You don't have to support this bill if you're not comfortable with how it's been changed.
Mr. President, Mr. President,
Senator from Florence, Senator Whitman, what purpose do you
my
have?
request to speak to the amendment.
You recognize the amendment, and I'll come to Senator from Richard. Senator from Florence.
Thank you, Mr. President. Number 46, obviously the number I wear, so I'm newest to the Senate, and I don't come to the well often, usually for introductions, but as I've sat here and I've listened to this, and I have so much respect for the senators who have spoken on the amendments, on the bills. I respect the passion, I respect the intensity, I respect the emotion behind it. I especially appreciate the balance between dueling needs, dueling positions. Obviously, the women in this room have a lot to say. I've got my wife. My wife is here. She's here most days with me. After 27 years, there's no one I hold in higher regard. I've got a daughter, my mom, my sister. I love and I appreciate, I respect and I revere women. Men, I've heard men be brought up. We're there during the pregnation process. We help get you pregnant. So we have an interest in this as well. We don't carry the babies, but I respect that men have a need here. That the men have a position. And as senators, we have positions. The one position I don't hear talked about often, though, is the baby. And I'm going to briefly, because I'm not going to be here long, I'm going to speak for the baby. Because as someone who was adopted after being born to a 14-year-old girl who was scared to death. And for those that will ask, well, how do you know how she felt? It's a longer story for another day, but when I was 18, just through pure God's providence and wild life, I met her. Unexpected, came out of nowhere, but I met her. And I talked with her, and I know how she felt because she shared with me. She was, in very quick summary, she was 14, had sex with her 15-year-old boyfriend, got pregnant, neither expected it. 1971, and at the time, 1971, abortion was not legal in the state of Ohio. But she got pregnant and was scared out of her mind because she really had three options. The first option was give birth to the baby, but she was told by her parents, you will not not bring a baby home to this house. The second option was keep the baby and try to make it work with her boyfriend, but that was quickly taken off the table because he left and wanted no part of that. The third option was to try to find an abortion because abortion wasn't legal. In talking to her after the fact, 18 years later, she said it was the hardest decision she ever made, but she had one goal in mind, which was to give that baby in her stomach a chance, an opportunity. She had no clue how it was going to turn out. She said for 18 years she struggled with the questions of, did he have a good life? Did he have a bad life? Was he happy? Was he unhappy? Did he resent me for birthing him and giving him up? So many questions, and I really do believe it was God's grace that allowed her to meet me and ask me how I felt about it. But in talking to her, realizing that the one voice that she listened to, and she didn't discount her voice or how hard it would be to be 14, but in talking to her, she said the one person that she wanted to consider was that child that she birthed and was never able to hold even, because she said she wanted me to have a chance. Now, I don't expect my story to convince anyone. I understand, but for the most part, we're probably entrenched in what we're going to do and how we're going to vote, and I respect that. So I'm not trying to impugn anyone's position. I'm not trying to really convince anyone. The law that made abortion illegal in 1971 is probably why I'm here today, because she said, you know, they were friends who told me that I could find an abortion. It was dangerous, but I probably could find someone. But she said she knew it was illegal. And that helped her mindset to say, if it's illegal and I want this child to have a chance, I'm going to go ahead and have this baby. Now, from there, life wasn't perfect, but I had the opportunity. When constituents have reached out and they've said, what about the mother? What about the mother? And I respond to hopefully every constituent I see, I care about the mother. I really do. But I also care about the snuffed out opportunity that could be that young man or that young woman. Doesn't mean life's going to be great, but don't they deserve the same opportunity that I received? And when I tell the constituents that I vote for pro-life legislation, it is in no way an indictment or demeaning or taking away or just trying to disparage the challenging position that women are in when they're pregnant and have an unwanted pregnancy. But I simply am here to advocate on behalf of that child, because they have an opportunity if they're given birth. They have an opportunity to become something wonderful in life. And as I vote pro-life, I ask those here in the chamber to also consider the opportunity of that child, because they are a component that we're not talking about enough, in my opinion. So, Mr. President.
Senator Charles, Senator Senator Marcus, do you rise?
The kind Senator.
Sure. Senator Gill for a question.
Thank you. I think I heard you say that in, was it Ohio? That there was no opportunity for abortion. So she did not have a choice.
There was no for a legal abortion.
Legal abortion. But she could have gotten an illegal abortion.
Yes.
And she chose not to do that.
Yes.
And so I would assume that she needed a little bit of time. She talked to her parents. She talked to her boyfriend. She figured out she could get an illegal abortion. She turned inward and she decided what to do. Shouldn't women have time to do those kind of things?
And that's why I would vote to table this, because the 6 weeks, in my opinion, is enough time.
What if your mother did not know that she was pregnant? Did she tell you she knew that I was pregnant when I first conceived, and therefore at 6 weeks, I had enough time?
I don't know how long it took her to know, and I appreciate and I respect you, Senator, and I don't know all the nuances of 14 when she knew, and I could never profess to know what she went through at 14. This really isn't to convince you or any other senator to change their position. I just hear so much from you and some other senators about the woman and the woman's position, and I respect it. I really do. And I think if you know me at all, I love my wife, my daughter, my mom, my sister. I respect those. I simply also want to put a face with that child who is not just a sesame seed or a raisin or a grape. They have the opportunity, if given the opportunity to be born, to become a state senator, a wife, a husband, a father, a mother. There's so many opportunities. So it isn't about trying to convince you or trying to say when she knew, when somebody does or doesn't know, as much as could we also consider the opportunity we're snuffing out. Because I wouldn't be here if she had said, you know what, at 14 I have so many reasons to abort you, but I think I'm going to give you the chance.
Well, I'm certainly thankful that she did not abort you, and I think that you've heard from all of us women that we do not want other women to have abortions. We don't like that. But I hope you have gathered that what we're trying to say is your mother deserved a choice, a meaningful choice, and we believe all women deserve a meaningful choice.
I appreciate that. I really do, Senator. Thank you.
Senator from Spartanburg, Senator Kimball, what purpose do you ask?
Mr. President, see the senator from Florence with you for a couple of questions.
I will. A couple of questions. Senator Nielsen, questions.
Senator, for starters, do you know that I'm really glad that your mother made the choice that she did, and I'm glad you're a colleague today.
Thank you, Senator. Appreciate it.
And as we talk about, I'm really proud of you standing up and talking about protecting the child. Because we don't talk about the kid a whole lot. We don't talk about the children as much as we should. We're talking about male versus female. This has now become the battle of the sexes versus the battle of the baby. And I think that's unfortunate. And, you know, to the Senator Charles's question to you a moment ago, I believe that if the cessation of a heartbeat signifies death, then the commencement of a heartbeat certainly is a corollary to signify life. And while I understand that we have to balance certain interests and people need to know when they're pregnant, I think that as the law is written here that we're talking about, the bill we're talking about today, you would be able to determine if a child is, you know, if there's a viable life there with a heartbeat. That's what we're talking about. Do you know that I'm actually glad that your mother did not have more time to think about trying to end your life?
And I appreciate that, Senator. And in talking to her, and I don't mind sharing that after that first conversation, she had an emotional breakdown that was visceral. Because she said she always wondered for 18 years, did she make the right call? How did it turn out? Because she had so many reasons not to. And while I felt so bad that she dealt with that for 18 years, she said, you know, don't feel bad because you're here. You had the choice. And I know I made the right decision because you and your life and the fact that you are here means that when I chose you, I chose the life. She chose somebody's potential that she would have never had the opportunity to see.
And Senator, to that point, I've actually had family members and good friends who've had abortions, and I can just speak from personal experience of those conversations. Never once, never has any one of those women come to me and said, man, I'm glad I had an abortion. In fact, every one of them has regretted having had one. So we're talking about trying to protect not only life in the womb, but protecting really, women are victims of abortion too. Because not only is the life lost when we start making abortions more readily available, more expensive, but more women are harmed too. And to your mother's point, she obviously has no regret having let you be born, right? And so at the end of the day, I just want to say again, I appreciate your talking about the human angle of this, that you're alive today, that you're serving in this body today because your mother chose life. And while I understand the reasonable exceptions, and I'm supporting reasonable exceptions, even though I've been hammered by some on our own side over it. I understand that a woman who was raped, or in the case of Vincent, I've always supported those exceptions. But abortion should not be used as birth control. We should do all we can to defend the life of the baby in the womb, and I appreciate your making it personal and human today, and God bless you and your mother.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator from Lexington, Senator Shield.
The Senator from Florence will answer one question.
Senator Gill for question.
I will.
Senator Gill.
Other than tell you I'm glad to have her as because you know I like her. And I love your wife, and I think she's great. She's one of my favorite people. Do you believe, Senator, did you know? I don't, I need to know if you believe. If we ban all abortions, do you believe that abortion